Today we're listing 10 reasons why the royal family is a waste of money. Starting off with number 10, do the royals cost the government money or do they make it money? The royals draw tourist dollars as well as publicity for Britain. In 2017, the monarchy boosted tourism in the UK by more than $640 million. Yeah, that's a lot of money. Even though the sovereign grant is growing, which means more money for the royals, the Crown Estate still provides a lot of money to the government. Anti-monarchy groups don't really think the royal family brings in money. What do you guys think? Are they just being haters or do you agree? They think the monarchy costs the country about $400 million a year. It was estimated that the government's cost to protect the family was over $100 million annually. $100 million to protect a family? I mean, that money could have gone towards better causes like helping with the problem of homelessness or providing money to low-income families, but instead they really said, let's put millions of dollars towards protecting one of the richest families in the world. It might be possible that the royal family would draw an equal amount from tourists while still taking in less money themselves. The historic buildings and memorabilia could likely draw in tourists even if there was no current royal family. So we may never know how much of this additional tourism revenue is actually directly tied to the royal family's current position. After becoming king, Charles hopes to slim down the monarchy with fewer senior royals involved in public engagements. He also spoke about opening more royal properties to the public, a move that could technically bring in more revenue. And even though this might be a smart business move, I still think these anti-monarchy groups might be onto something. I just don't think the royal life needs to be this heavily funded by the taxpayers, but that likely isn't gonna change. Number 9 on our list, direct funding for the monarchy through the sovereign grant. Some really important things that the sovereign grant helped with included $92 million renovations to Buckingham Palace. Spending close to $100 million on renovations alone can't possibly be for aesthetic reasons or for tourists visiting the palace. Being royal means their palace and lifestyle has to be as royal as their title. But at that cost? I mean, I can't say that's the most relatable thing, no matter how much they want to be relatable to the general public. I literally can't remember the last time I spent millions of dollars on renovations. But other than that, yeah, this family is totally relatable. Royalists say that these costs represent only £1 a year to every person in the UK. That makes it much better. All British people chipped in for the multi-million-dollar renovations whether they liked it or not. On to number 8, would you ever voluntarily pay taxes if you had the choice not to? If given the chance, I'm sure a lot of us would opt out of ever having to pay taxes, but the Queen used to voluntarily pay income and capital gains tax since 1992 on whatever wasn't used to finance her official work. I'm adding this to my list of reasons the royal family is in fact not relatable. King Charles has also voluntarily paid income tax on his income from another landed estate, the Duchy of Cornwall, since 1993. I think this whole trying to relate to the public is getting out of hand, because why would you voluntarily do something most people hate having to do? But then again, they can afford to pay taxes unlike a lot of the taxpayers who are funding their lifestyle. How ironic. In 2016 to 2017, that estate brought in a revenue of $27 million, on which King Charles paid tax of around $5 million. In fact, most of King Charles's official duties are financed from the duchy's income. This income also covers however much the official duties of Camilla, William, and Kate would cost. The working royals in Charles's direct family get revenues from the sovereign grant too. So when Prince Harry and Meghan left, a lot of their royal income was put to a stop, which caused a bit of friction within the family, but mainly because they wouldn't be fulfilling their responsibilities. Which makes sense, but being cut cold turkey is very rough. The Queen's own funds are also used for her official duties, which means she doesn't have to pay tax on that part of her income. So she does pay taxes, just not all of them. Must be nice. Number 7 on our list, knowing that they are on the taxpayer's dime, the royal family is careful with their public behavior when it comes to extravagant spending. While there are often extreme expenses associated with major events such as weddings, the royal family has been known to fly on budget airlines and fund some of their own travel. But that isn't always true. A few trips these royals have taken in the past few years came with an outrageously priced bill. Charles and Camilla have somehow managed to spend $530,000 on a tour they took through the Caribbean. Damn, what could you guys possibly be spending $500,000 on? Other trips that were pretty pricey were trips taken by Will and Kate, estimating around $130,000. I need to somehow find a way to go on these trips. I know they have a blast. How can you not if you're spending hundreds of thousands? Just in case you haven't noticed, they're very careful of the public persona. They feel like they have this sense of responsibility to the public that funds their lifestyle. So if they were acting reckless, they probably wouldn't have as much support, which makes sense. It's funny when the paparazzi tries to catch them in awkward moments. Is that another thing I'm adding to my list of reasons this family just isn't as relatable as they try to be? Yes. Thinking about being absolutely perfect and delightful all the time just feels so exhausting. Do they still have to act perfect if they lose their luggage at an airport? I know a lot of us would be fuming. If this family woke up one day and decided to become savage, that would make major headlines, and honestly, I would want to tune in. The once royally perfect family goes savage. That's a whole YouTube video right there. I think I'm onto something. Our sixth reason, their financial worries are just so different from the average person. And to think their lifestyle is funded by the regulars is just interesting to think about. We already know they keep up this facade to make it seem like they aren't spending their money recklessly, but let's be real, they're royals. They're accustomed to a lavish life, so who would even stop them if they did want to spend a few extra bucks? Or in their case, a few extra millions if they wanted to. This is me trying to justify their actions. The Cambridges may have downplayed how much they even used the family helicopter. Even if they say it wasn't used very often at all, it is implied that it was being used a bit more than the Queen wanted. Another expense that caused tension for the family was Will and Kate's tour of the Caribbean earlier this year. The cost for chartered flights for that one trip cost $268,000. Can we take that in for a second? The flights alone almost cost them $300,000. What could they have possibly been doing? I actually need answers. The fifth reason is the many petitions made to abolish the monarchy. As much support as this family gets, there are people who really don't want to see this established monarchy continue. What side are you on, for or against the monarchy? And although republicanism isn't a strong force in Britain at the moment, that could change if it fails to attract the support of the younger British population. If the monarchy was abolished, the Queen's or King's consent would disappear. There would be no royal family to influence the country's legislation. It is believed that the people of Britain would actually have a more fair and even democracy. That sounds very intriguing, but I guess not enough for the majority of the population to agree with the removal of the royal family. Number 4, this family has been involved in scandals for generations. Being knee-deep in controversies is not a good look for the representation of Britain, but they somehow managed to pay the news outlets to run stories that promote them in a good way. I mean, they managed to be so perfect that people sweep their complete wrongdoings under a rug, which, might I add, has to be a huge rug. No one is obviously perfect, but the extent to which the royals have been exposed for their controversies is so out of pocket that it's actually shocking. And the fact that these news stories have not at all gotten as much attention as something as mediocre as Meghan and Harry leaving the palace is crazy. Political correspondent Nadine Batchelor-Hunt argued that the royals are becoming increasingly out of place in contemporary society due to the family's past and present scandals. She might be onto something because she's not completely wrong. The third reason on today's top 10, if the king moved out of Buckingham Palace, he wouldn't have to give up all his royal residences. Buckingham Palace has been used as the official working and living headquarters of Britain's monarch since 1837. With over 700 rooms, it would be used by the king to host state banquets and engagements with world leaders and government officials. It's also a prime location for many milestone events and could become a permanent tourist attraction if the king were to officially move out. The palace is property of the Crown Estate, which the late Queen Elizabeth was the owner of while she was the monarch. However, this would change if the new king was no longer head of state. Now, wouldn't that suck? Counting down to number 2, despite the money produced by the monarchy, the royal family is pretty expensive. Back in 2018 to 2019, they cost taxpayers $86 million. This was 41% more than the previous year. How does it make sense that there are thousands of people in debt but the funds towards the royals are increasing? Showing where their money goes. Many agree that the education systems would benefit from this wealth more than old people born into the crown. Not only does the system cost the British public money, but they're also unable to choose which ruler will come next, leaving taxpayers with no power over the system. That takes a huge chunk of their money. If you compare the wealth earned by the royals to the people of the country, it drastically changes the picture. The typical earnings of a full-time employee in England falls at £31,000, while the Queen banks around $42 million for doing whatever exactly it is that she does. Being born into the monarchy means you will never endure the same struggles as most people. They have no financial worries and aren't expected to work a 9-to-5 job. The majority of society works hard to achieve a somewhat comfortable life, while others are spoon-fed. Oh, to be rich. At the end of the day, royals are human too. They didn't ask to be born into wealth. Princess Diana and the Duchess of Sussex are living proof that the spotlight can be terrifying and toxic. Even though the royals may be lucky to have a luxurious lifestyle, this attention can be manipulated when needed. For example, the royal family can release unexpected news to remove negative attention from another member of the family. The British public has no say in who becomes the next monarch, which shows how much control we have in terms of the royal family. If a ruler is deemed unfit by the general public, they can't be voted out. Problematic royals have historically been difficult to remove from positions of power. Another factor to consider is that King Charles was crowned at 73. In the UK, the average age of retirement is 64, meaning you receive a pension not having to work anymore. Should he really receive the title when he's almost a decade over the age of retirement? Charles, I hate to break it to you, but you're getting kind of old. Today we are talking about 10 of the royal family members who lost millions. Starting off with number 10, it didn't come as a surprise to find out that the once beloved Prince Harry's sudden exit from royal life cost him millions. This life-altering decision that was made by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex left many shocked and them with a substantially smaller amount of money in the bank account. Meghan really got him to drop it all for her. That's some real power. After being cut off financially in 2020, he's admitted to relying on his late mother, Princess Diana's inheritance, even revealing that if it wasn't for the inheritance, they would have not been able to afford their royal exit. Shout out Princess Di. Along with losing millions of money, it might be safe to say that Prince Harry lost much more because of this decision that many supporters of the royals, including the family, did not agree with. He may have inherited additional funds from his great-grandmother who passed away in 2002. The BBC reported at the time that Prince William and Harry were left north of $16 million to divide. Harry would receive a larger portion as he would not gain the financial benefits of being king one day. Okay, so I'm seeing Harry is still getting that bag without the royal responsibilities. Maybe he is onto something. In number 9, we can't speak of Harry without mentioning his wife and former actress Meghan Markle. After their short period of time as working royals, Meghan was not feeling it at all and thought it would be healthier for the couple to opt out of their royal duties and start a life in LA. They really dropped the bag, now they have to support themselves. Meg, I thought you cared about your status. Do they still think it was a good idea? We may never know for sure, but considering all the brand deals they've signed with to stay afloat, to them, this may be the path of least resistance. The couple has been criticized for recently entering into multi-million-dollar deals with the streaming giants Spotify and Netflix. I mean, hey, they gotta make money some way, even if that meant exposing the royal drama to get that bag. During the bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey, the couple was asked about whether or not they are just money-grabbing royals, to which Harry assured was never the intention. Another lie? Or is this a sincere statement? Let me know what you think in the comments below, because their words are really not matching with their actions. Markle suggested that their charity Archwell was a remedy to the misinformation about them, explaining that the work would prioritize storytelling through a truthful lens. Okay, let's see if Miss Meghan is being honest now. Down to number 8, before getting cut off financially, King Charles was helping Harry and Meghan to make their transition easier. Once that was done in the spring of 2020, only months after the couple had announced their decision to step down, Harry and Meghan made the claim that they were cut off financially. Wow, now that is cold. Being upset that you are no longer reaping the benefits of a royal as someone who voluntarily did not want to be one anymore feels very much like a first world problem. Am I right? Do they really expect to continue earning a royal allowance without taking up the duties? Harry and Meg, I think you should feel lucky you have enough without the royals to spoon feed you millions of dollars, but that's just me. On top of that, the couple has managed to lose millions of supporters because of their controversial Netflix miniseries, which they really believed needed to be a 6-part story. I too wonder what they thought their love story was important enough for us to consider sitting through 6 separate episodes of it. But anyway, Romeo and Juliet would never. In number 7, the once known as a prince, Andrew. After some major controversies, Andrew was stripped of royal titles, military associations, and royal patronages. Oh, and not to mention the millions that he will no longer be continuing with his royal duties. Big shocker. All Prince Andrew's roles have been returned to the Queen with immediate effect and will be redistributed to other members of the royal family. The door is being closed on return to public life. Sucks to suck, Andrew. Although he does seem to be keeping his constitutional role as Chancellor of State, one of 4 royals who can undertake the Queen's official duties should she be unwell. Although he does seem to be keeping his constitutional role as Chancellor of State. The Duke had a 22-year career in the Royal Navy and served as a helicopter pilot during the Falkland Wars. The latest palace announcement means he has lost military titles, including Colonel of the Grenadier Guards. Seems like a lot of these L's cost him more than just millions. Moving on to number 6, after the ill-prepared Caribbean tour Will and Kate took, many were quick to call them out for the outrageous amount of money that was spent for this trip, making it their most expensive trip of the year. Look at these ballers. Just a reminder, a lot of these trips these royals take are funded by the taxpayers, so this news definitely hit a nerve when it was revealed how much was spent. Honestly, I'd be annoyed too if my money was going towards a trip I wasn't even invited to. The figure includes the cost of William and Kate's journey on the RAF Voyager, an Airbus 330 used by the royals and government VIP, and a separate staff planning trip that took place before the tour began. Overall, the royals received £86 million from the Sovereign Grant. Of that, $4.5 million went to travel, including the Caribbean tour and the November trip King Charles made to Barbados when the country became a republic, which cost £138,000. The cost also included 179 helicopter flights by members of the royal family and 24 additional charter flights. They really know how to spend money when it's not theirs. And number 5, King Charles III is now entitled to riches part of the Crown Estate, the largest of the investment entities linked to the UK monarchy, as well as from a private estate, the Duchy of Lancaster. Eldest son William has inherited the Duchy of Cornwall after succeeding his father as Prince of Wales and next in line to the throne. The Crown Estate and Royal Duchies oversee total assets of about $21 billion, with their values rising about 70% on average over the past decade, which reflects rising land and property prices. Wow, now we're getting into the billions. Seems like he could share it with the rest of us. Come on, King Charles. Profits from the Duchy of Lancaster, which owns 45,000 acres of land across England and Wales, provide income for the UK's sovereign and have helped to fund the activities of other British royals. One of the largest sources of the Windsor's wealth, as well as one of the most difficult to assess, is the family's property holdings. The family owns a large portfolio of real estate, including well-known properties such as the 830,000 square foot Buckingham Palace, Sandringham Country Estate, Balmoral Castle, the Duchy of Cornwall, and Windsor Castle. And the list goes on and on. Must be nice. On to number 4. The thing this family spends money on, a lot of us can only dream of being able to drop millions of dollars to travel, renovate, and do other royal British things. The release of an annual report, the Sovereign Grant, details spending for the year. This also revealed the renovations to Meghan and Prince Harry's new home, Frogmore Cottage, which cost over $3 million. You guys like to spend a lot of money too, huh? When they decided on stepping down, they offered to pay back the expenses from the renovations. Wow, how nice of you guys. Members of the family also have massive amounts of private wealth, the spending of which they do not have to report. But that doesn't stop us from being curious about the other ways they spend their lavish wealth. According to the report, Queen Elizabeth and the royal family received $104 million from British taxpayers. They spent $42 million on renovations to royal palaces and properties. Along with the upgrades to the Sussexes' home, a number of other home design projects took up a big chunk of the budget, including Buckingham Palace, Kensington Palace, and Windsor Castle. No wonder they're going broke. Other things the royals spend their wealth on is their large staff and crew who work for the royals. And just in case you didn't know, a lot of people work for the palace. Payroll costs totaled around $29.4 million, and that includes multiple levels of staff, including private secretaries for senior royals and public relations teams. As much as the royals try their hardest to pretend like they're relatable and just like us, they really aren't. Spending this much money on the people who work for you is literally the complete opposite of relatable. On to number 3, traveling like royalty comes with a king-sized price tag. The royal family serves as ambassadors for the UK across the country, Commonwealth, and the world, which is why they're out and about a lot. The 2022 annual report from the Sovereign Grant and Sovereign Grant Reserve revealed that the royal family spent more than $5 million on travel in the past year. Some of those trips were vacations, other official government trips, and a good few seem to be a bit of both. But damn, spend a lot of money. According to the Sovereign Grant, members of the family undertook more than 3,200 engagements during the year, with the Queen doing 140, and the total travel costs were around $5.8 million. Can you imagine spending that much on traveling? Millions of dollars to travel is a crazy thing to think about for us regular folk, but for the royals, it's just another day. Obviously, the overseas tours cost significantly more than day trips in Britain. For example, Prince Charles and Duchess Camilla's trip to the Caribbean and Cuba cost around $530,000. The Fiji and Tonga portion of the Sussexes Down Under tour cost over $100K, and Prince William's trip to visit Jordan, Israel, and Palestine was around $90,000. The most expensive trip so far was taken by King Charles and Camilla in 2017 to Italy, Romania, and Austria. During the 9-day tour, the couple took several very expensive charter flights between Bucharest, Pisa, Naples, Rome, and Vienna, and all that came to a cost of $203,000. Charles and Camilla are the biggest spenders. The couple spent more than any other royal family member on travel in 2018. It was then that they racked up a bill of about $530,000 for their massive tour through the Caribbean. Damn, y'all gotta chill out a little. However, it seems as though they really got their money's worth on that one, as the couple took part in more than 50 engagements on 10 different islands during their stay. It was also the first royal visit to Cuba. Why does it cost this much to travel? Well, the royals have to take into consideration the amount of staff that is coming with them, who have their own separate expenses, the tremendous expense of operating around-the-clock RCMP security detail, and you can't forget the officers driving armored Escalades following the royal family everywhere to ensure some crazy lunatic doesn't try to make a name for himself by taking them out. Number 2 on our top 10, the family increasing their carbon footprint. Since the royals are partially funded by the taxpayer, the Prince of Wales is obligated to publish annual reports covering business costs, carbon emissions, home energy consumption, and travel schedules. To work out the carbon footprints of the royals, let's dive into the impact it has on their travels. With an increase of 93% in carbon emissions is due to more overseas tours. On the flip side, there was a 24% reduction in energy use for heating and lighting, and a 2% reduction in waste generation, which should make environmentalist King Charles happy. Out of everyone in the immediate royal family, King Charles has the biggest carbon footprint. The king really is out here living large. On the flip side, the smallest carbon footprint was made by Queen Liz. When the Queen was strictly forbidden from traveling on public transit, she would regularly use her own private train. Yeah, you heard that right. The family has its own private train. The regal interior of the Royal British train is breathtaking enough, but what makes this more impressive is that it's a diesel-electric hybrid. A major and controversial source of wealth for the royal family is the crown jewels. These include a multitude of rare and expensive jewels and crowns. Among the most famous of the jewels is the Koh-i-Noor diamond, a 105-carat diamond which you can consider as a gift to Queen Victoria or stolen by the British in the mid-19th century. We can get into that another day. Anyway, determining the value of a jewel like the Koh-i-Noor is also difficult. By comparison, in 2015, a flawless 100-carat diamond sold at auction for $22 million. However, it is likely that the Koh-i-Noor would sell for a substantial amount more. This is because of the value of the diamond based on its association with the royals and the value that other governments have placed on it. The Indian government is one such entity that has sought the return of the diamond over the years. The royal collection includes over 1 million art objects held in trust by the monarch. The king or queen do not own these artworks. Among the pieces in the collection are countless items of decorative art. Due to the size and enormous historical value of the collection, it's difficult to place a monetary value on it. As a newly appointed king, there's no surprise Charles is hiding something from us, right? Today we're talking about 10 secrets King Charles is trying to keep from us about his wealth. Starting off with number 10, now that King Charles is living a king-size life, how can we pretend there aren't any regal secrets he's keeping from us? After inheriting the properties from his mother Queen Liz, Charles has been getting a lot more attention, and obviously we're gonna dig into the English wealth and their secrets. For a regular British citizen, an inheritance over $380,000 is taxed 40%. But King Charles doesn't have to pay anything on properties, jewels, and investments that probably are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Whatever happened to eating the rich? The royal treatment is getting out of hand. Having all this money and privilege on top of not having to pay taxes? Every day this family makes me wonder why I wasn't born a royal. But anyway, according to the British government, the monarchy needs sufficient private resources and a degree of financial independence from the government. Am I the only one who feels like the British government is sucking up to the royals? Or is everyone in the UK in some trance? Because considering their extremely problematic history, how are they getting away with all of this? It has to be a trance, right? Maybe that's what they're hiding from us. They might not even be royal. Maybe they just set up a whole castle and trance the whole country just so they don't have to pay taxes. Honestly, I might be onto something. The same document explains that the British Crown is also not legally liable for income tax or capital gains tax. Personally, I think the British people should overthrow the throne at this point because taxes should not be reserved for regular citizens. But that's just me. Or what if they flipped and only taxed the extremely rich people? That is a society I would love to live in. On to number 9, the royal family is under few requirements to disclose details of its wealth, but all I'm gonna say is, if you want to find out, it's not too difficult to go all Sherlock Holmes on the family. The family's communications with the government are exempt from freedom of information requests. Their official papers are kept secret by Britain's National Archives for at least 50 years. The lack of transparency has led anti-monarchy groups, including the Republic, to call the monarchy an unaccountable public institution that has the power, secrecy, and influence to willfully abuse its position. What do you guys think about that? Do you think they're abusing their position? Because I kind of agree. Without a change, many details of the royal family's private wealth may never be known. Facts about the Duchy of Lancaster's offshore investments were leaked back in 2017, and those detailed roughly $13 million in offshore accounts. I wonder what else could be revealed if more documents were suddenly leaked. Seriously, we need some investigative work done on this family. Other reports have suggested questionable foreign dealings or arrangements. Earlier this year, King Charles was accused of offering to help secure a knighthood for a Saudi national in response to a donation for his charitable foundation. Representatives of Charles did deny this, but it sounds a little suspicious to me. Counting down to number 8, historically speaking, having a claim to the throne has been a big deal. Wars have been fought over who has the most right to rule, and even if it is less significant to everyday people, the royal family takes this very seriously. If they were not the legitimate heirs to the throne for some reason, then they'd be just regular folks who'd have to find a house to rent somewhere. If only. By and large, no one questions the legitimacy of the royal family, but there has been some potential for disruption thanks to DNA analysis of a body found in a parking lot. After King Richard III was struck down in battle in 1485, his body was laid to rest at Greyfriars Abbey. But a lot can happen in over 500 years, and the abbey, along with the king, were more or less forgotten. So much that his grave ended up being under an office building parking lot. Other bodies have been discovered over the years on the property, and it was known to have once been the site of the abbey. During a DNA analysis to confirm his identity, it turned out to be Richard. But listen to this plot twist. The Y chromosomes in the DNA analysis don't match others in the royal line. Gasp. Who is the imposter? So, quick biology lesson for you guys to help break this down. The maternal line was used to identify the remains of Richard, but if the Y chromosome passed down from the male side doesn't match, it means somewhere in the family line there may have been an affair. Someone at some time gave birth to a child not of the royal line, or pretended the child was legit. This is the real English tea of the day. Drop in the comments who you think the imposter child was, because theories could get interesting. Since we can't know when this affair may have occurred, there's no way to know when it affected the family line. So maybe the current royals are the real deal, or maybe they aren't. Down to 7, ever so often the ruling class get compared to vampires for their habit of living off the people over whom they rule. So there were likely a few critics of the royal family, and King Charles in particular, who would be delighted to discover that the king is literally related to Dracula. Spooky. If Hotel Transylvania makes a new movie, I know who they can incorporate into the plot. Or even better, have as a voice actor for a new character. Matter of fact, I should pitch this idea to Sony ASAP. In real life, Bram Stoker is believed to have based his famous vampire in part on Vlad Tepes, and the 15th century Romanian prince. Vlad earned himself the nickname Impaler due to his penchant for sticking enemies on sharp poles. So the story goes. Fast forward to the present, and King Charles is a distant relative of the Romanian prince. He's Dracula's great-grandson 16 times removed. Prince Charles was apparently very stoked to learn this and has a soft spot for Transylvania, the region made famous by Dracula. So now I'm gonna have to go explore my family tree to see if I'm related to any historic or iconic people. On to number 6, speaking of crazy conspiracies, word on the street is Jack the Ripper, one of history's most notorious assassins, may have been a royal. His identity was never determined, and even to this day, over a century later, people are trying to piece it together. Back in the day, one potential suspect was Prince Albert Victor. What is going on with this family? First Dracula, now Jack the Ripper? This royal family has some explaining to do because it is just getting out of hand. They cannot keep getting away with it. Another theory was that the British royal family wanted specific women taken out because they knew the prince had an illegitimate son. That is some tea. Neither of these theories had any evidence to support it, and they appeared nearly a century after the fact. The result is that it's almost entirely unlikely, but still something the royal family is not likely to ever openly address and would rather keep on the down low. Let me know if you think this theory is valid. I mean, the possibilities are endless, right? Down to number 5, celebrities really do the weirdest things ever, and we just accept it because, well, they're celebrities. But traveling with your own bag of blood is just a different level of weird. Even though the reasoning is not the craziest, you have to admit adding a bag of blood to your travel checklist is just so bloody interesting. In case of emergencies, King Charles and Prince William travel with a sack of their own blood on hand. The royals travel with their physician and a bag of their own home brew in case of an emergency transfusion. But hey, I can't blame them. For a good portion of her busier years, the Queen was making about one state visit per year. But Prince William was a bit more widely traveled. Blood only has a shelf life of about 42 days after it's been bagged up, so they were probably getting fresh stuff for each and every trip. That's a lot of needlework. I wonder what they would have done if someone had a serious fear of needles. Number 4 on our countdown, in 1837, the historic Buckingham Palace became the official residence of the British sovereigns in London. This 700-room palace also serves as the venue for many royal events and ceremonies. I would expect them to throw events at a literal palace, so this isn't too shocking, but I wonder how many secret doorways they have, and do any lead to Narnia, because that might just be the next thing I do when I ever go to London. Sneak my way into every corridor to find out where the secret passages would be. Who's coming with me? The palace has 19 staterooms, 52 royal and guest bedrooms, 188 staff bedrooms, 92 offices, and 78 bathrooms. It also has a cinema, indoor swimming pool, post office, chapel, a doctor's surgery, and even a cash machine. Having a literal post office in your house is just a next level flex. Maintaining a palace of this size obviously requires a lot of time, money, and staff. With more than 800 workers employed, there's a job for everything in this house. Among the more unusual jobs, there are 2 full-time clockmakers. The palace has more than 350 clocks, so if you ever need to know the time, you will have a clock somewhere in the vicinity. What a relief. Number 3 on our list, can we talk about King Charles's privilege? Being a rich white man is one thing, but add royal into the mix and he really is set for life. Becoming king after the late Queen Liz's impressive 70-year reign is definitely a privilege, and King Charles is very careful about what about this lifestyle he chooses to show with us regular folk and what is kept behind closed doors. There's one place that His Majesty can likely be found, on his hands and knees in his personal Highgrove house gardens. The garden at Highgrove really does spring from my heart, and, strange as it may seem to some, creating it has been rather like a form of worship, the royal said in 1993. On to number 2, what's the point of all this wealth if you can't share it with your future generations? Nothing is more magical to a young child than a secret treehouse. Originally built for Princes William and Harry, Charles recently renovated the area for the newest generation of the little royal youngsters. The rustic playhouse is in a woodland area known as Stumpery, surrounded by toadstools and stone steps leading up to the playhouse entrance. This sounds like a fairy tale, and I'm going to need to schedule a playdate so I can go explore this cute treehouse. So who's coming with me? Last on the list, there's one question that many have wondered. Do the royals cost the government money, or do they make it money? For one, the royals draw tourist dollars as well as publicity for Britain. In 2017, it was estimated that the monarchy boosted the tourism sector by more than $640 million. While the sovereign grant has been growing, which means more money for the royals, the Crown Estate provides a huge sum of money to the government. Anti-monarchy groups don't really think the royal family brings in money. These groups might be onto something, since they suspect that the monarchy actually costs the country about $400 million a year. Apparently it costs the government over $100 million annually to protect the royal family. Word on the street is that King Charles is trying to slim down the monarchy with fewer senior royals. He also talked about opening up more royal properties to the public, a move that could theoretically bring in more revenue. I can't see how this might be a smart business move, but I still do think the anti-monarchy groups might be onto something. Today we're counting down the top 10 ways the royal family paid the paparazzi to keep quiet. Starting off with number 10, Kate Middleton. As put together as this family wants to seem, there are always moments that are hard to keep away from the public, especially when you have the paparazzi constantly watching your every move. During a vacation with Prince William, Kate was caught off guard on a balcony in France. After pics of her topless during her sunbathing session were sold and published through French magazine Closer, it caused some serious drama. The royals were very upset to find out that the paparazzi was being disrespectful and invading their privacy during their stay at a French lodge. I'd be annoyed too. Can't even be at peace during your own vacation? That sucks. Kate has been trying her hardest to maintain a professional and regal persona, especially while outside when she knows there will be cameras. So it shouldn't be such a wild thing to think she's human and does regular human things while in the peace of her own space around her family. After the pictures were published, the family took the case to court because the photographer and publisher were profiting off pictures taken through invading their privacy. The court ordered defendants to pay damages to Kate and William. On to number 9, Prince Harry caught in Las Vegas naked. Now, we all know how hard it is to not become a chaotic human being while you're in Vegas, and Prince Harry is no different than us when it comes down to it. While in his own hotel room, photographers took some sneaky shots of the prince while he was walking around undressed. I guess the prince forgot to close all the curtains, or simply didn't have the paparazzi on his mind during his own vacation. The royals really do have it rough. They can't even breathe without remembering that one wrong or unregal move can be published within the matter of hours if caught. Harry has a special dislike for paparazzi and has even gotten into a couple of brawls with some photographers because of how fed up he would become from the constant amount of cameras flashing in his face. I get that the royals have a certain reputation they need to worry about, but sometimes expressing emotions can be freeing, and Harry has been one of the few royals who has made a point to do just that. As the younger prince, that just makes sense. He doesn't have as much responsibility as his older brother, so why not become a loose cannon here and there? Down to number 8. Now, this one is most definitely a little unhinged, but Prince Andrew's ex-wife Sarah Ferguson was part of a scandal thanks to the paparazzi that caused their 6-year marriage to end. Another instance of a royal being stalked by photographers during a vacay, Sarah was captured with a financial advisor having some intimate fun at her beach villa in Saint-Tropez while she sunbathed topless. Yikes. As a royal, this is definitely hard to defend. Not only was she cheating in broad daylight, but there were pictures circulating. The royals may be on vacation, but it seems like they will never catch a break from the paparazzi following them around, even while off royal duty. In number 7, thanks to the British press, we found out King Charles has been drinking alcohol since the age of 14, which is definitely underage. In the 1960s, the king was overheard by a journalist asking for a cherry brandy. The alleged story is that his friends dared him to go up to the bar and order a drink, so he ordered the first thing that came to his mind. Unluckily, the journalist sitting near him wanted to make this into a scandalous story, which got King Charles in serious trouble and also cost his bodyguard his job. As careful as the royals are known to be, it's no surprise that sometimes they slip up, just as other human beings do. You may not know this, but this rebellious king has broken royal protocols quite a few times during his time as prince. PDA is normally frowned upon, which King Charles has shown towards both of his wives, respectively, during each marriage. He has had oysters. Yeah, that's against the royal rules too, because seafood is usually avoided due to fears of food poisoning. But hey, if the king wants an oyster, who's gonna stop him, right? Charles was the first Prince of Wales to be granted a divorce with Princess Diana, even though it was never preferred that monarchs get a divorce. Number 6 on our list is Queen Elizabeth suing the Sun for publishing a stolen pic of Sarah, Duchess of York, and Princess Beatrice, which was meant to be used for their 1988 Christmas card. The 2-day early publishing of the Christmas message upset the Queen to the point where she filed a lawsuit for copyright infringement against the Sun, with the settlement costing them over $180,000. Although some believe public messages do not belong to anyone in particular, the Sun did send out a personal apology for the early publishing of the picture with Sarah and Beatrice, which was meant for the message on Christmas Day. This clearly meant a lot for Queen Elizabeth because it is not often we see the Queen go out of her way to call out people. She really takes her Christmas cards very seriously. You gotta respect it. Number 5 on our top 10 countdown, the invasion of privacy continues, causing Meghan and Prince Harry to take tabloids to court over their concerns more than once. As scary as it sounds, publishers have brought out the high tech, using drones and even helicopters in a very desperate and extremely invasive attempt to get pictures of their son Archie through the backyard of the couple's Montecito home. The couple, who stepped back as senior members of the British royal family, have made countless headlines ever since then, which naturally meant a lot of media and press was going to be all up in their business. But they really crossed the line by trying to use helicopters to see what the family is up to while they're just minding their business at home. And although a lot of people eat up any sort of news based around the royals, no matter how mediocre the story is, it should definitely not be normal for publishers to go to these extreme lengths just to capture a picture of these people. In the infamous docuseries Harry and Meghan, Meg talks about how she's been struggling with the paparazzi too. When she had started dating Harry, paparazzi would pay her neighbors to live stream what she was doing in her house by setting up cameras that would point to her backyard. That sounds super scary and overly obsessive, because what could be so entertaining about watching a person that closely all because they're dating a royal? I could never imagine caring that much. And personally, I think some new laws about privacy invasion within the media should be made because that is too invasive. After the docuseries released, it made a lot of people realize that it may have not been the media attention the couple didn't like, as they insisted, but the lack of control over the kinds of stories being made on them. Funny enough, even after sharing their own narrative on stories, media outlets still found ways to control the narrative in a very different direction. They really can't win. In number 4, we all know how often Harry and Meghan have made the news headlines. Their story just seems to be very interesting for the public. But there also have been accusations that the family plans controversial stories in order to gain this attention. Leading up to the wedding of Meghan and Harry, a scandal involved Meghan's estranged father Thomas Markle for staging a photo shoot. The staged photo scandal, thereafter dubbed Markle debacle, created a massive PR headache for the royals. Markle Sr. claimed the saga caused him 2 heart attacks as well as worldwide embarrassment and ridicule while losing my relationship with my daughter Meghan and son-in-law Prince Harry. This father and daughter have seemed to bring their rocky relationship into the limelight a few times. Thomas even put out a statement that insisted his daughter never reached out to him or made any efforts to rekindle their relationship. This caused Meghan to send a letter to her dad, calling him out for upsetting her with his lies and for not communicating with her properly after she'd heard from a tabloid that he had a heart attack. Somehow, Mail on Sunday got hold of the letter and published it too. This caused a lawsuit to be filed against the publishers for acting dishonestly. This beef between the family feels almost embarrassing because they're airing out each other's business, which is quite the opposite of what the royals have ever wanted from their family members. But one thing about the royals, the English tea is always steaming hot, whether they like it or not. Number 3 on our list of top 10. Yes, our third Meghan Harry story. The couple is clearly not shy at all from filing lawsuits against the press when inaccurate news stories are published about the family. There have been many misleading allegations published about the two, which was a leading cause for them to want to step down from their royal duties. Which, as we all know, made major news and has consistently kept the two in news stories, and it really is up to us to decide what we believe or not. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex have claimed that they wanted a private, normal life, hence why they moved out London to LA. During this period of time, we've seen that the two have been doing everything they can to fight the press when they feel like the claims being published are completely inaccurate. After the passing of Harry's mom, Princess Diana, the media was overly obsessed with his every move, which had infamously caused him to even get into some physical fights with some photographers. The few times that it made headlines, it made the young prince seem like a rebel, and even though he may have been, he also just wanted some freedom, which ironically he didn't have as someone who has more power than most people his age. Honestly, Harry, I get it. There are times when you just want to be left alone, and being someone with that status is harder to do and harder to enjoy anything without wondering if it's going to be featured in a news story the next day. In number 2, Buckingham Palace doesn't usually comment on a majority issues. Instead, they only tend to issue denials for the most egregious. So when untrue statements were being made against Harry and Meg, they felt frustrated that the palace didn't put out any statements. The inability to correct what they see as inaccurate accounts in the UK tabloids apparently frustrated Harry and Meghan, the latter perhaps even more so. Which in a way makes sense since Meghan was a free-speaking actor and activist with her own social media account and blog. She has a tendency to stand up for whatever she believes in and has no problem defending herself, which might be why this couple has done exceptionally well in remaining relevant in the press. As many scandals have presented themselves throughout the timeline of this royal family's history, doesn't it make you realize how imperfect this seemingly perfect and regal family really is? The amount of things they do to make a point that they may be above us all and are definitely treated like such makes it interesting and somewhat entertaining to see how much of a mess this family can be, and the lengths they will go to with the press and media to try to control the narrative to maintain their reputation of being perfectly royal. But then again, no one is perfect, and when there are cameras all up in your face all the time, and even sometimes when you aren't even paying attention, it makes it even harder to find a balance of being yourself and being yourself for the cameras. What would you do if you had this sort of lifestyle that is available for constant criticism from the public? I think it would get so exhausting, which is why I totally get when some extremely famous people go out in disguise to feel like they have a normal life. And last but not least, number 1 on our top 10, The Crown. If you've seen this show, you know how juicy it can really get. This show has caused great controversy because of how much is exposed. Stories, family conflicts, affairs, and other scandals that became a public spectacle. But funny enough, some members of the family actually do tune into the show. According to sources, Queen Elizabeth saw all 10 episodes of the first season. She obviously approved of the type of content being publicized since the show just released a new season. If you're currently watching the show, let me know what your favorite season is in the comments. So that's a wrap on some scandals the royal family did their best to keep secretive, which admittedly is hard since any and all news on this family spreads like wildfire. If you liked this top 10, drop a like and don't forget to subscribe to get more updates and tea. I'll catch you next time on The Rich Life.